From the farm to Washington, the nation has a new Secretary of Agriculture. Sonny Perdue is sworn in with approval from Nebraska farm leaders, but President Trump's position on NAFTA raises concerns. And you may be surprised at how few of these Grand Island kids have been to a farm and what they think when they do. Get ready to grow. After months of delays, the Senate confirms the Secretary of Agriculture. And in sunny Perdue, Nebraska leaders see someone who can be a champion for rural America. The photos don't show it, but it appears Sonny Perdue hasn't forgotten his roots.
He was wearing boots just like I am today.
That impression stuck with this Nebraska cattle producer.
And I'm happy to say that Sonny is one of us. He understands agriculture. He's part of agriculture.
Perdue is the first Southerner in 2 decades to lead the USDA. Some had concerns about his understanding of Midwestern farm states, but those like Senator Deb Fischer say he's answered that. In a statement, she said, quote, he understands regional differences and is committed to ensuring that agriculture holds a prominent seat at the table during negotiations, end quote. And trade remains a major concern. Take soybeans, where 3 of every 5 rows are exported. Soybean leaders say they've heard positives from the Trump team.
You know, they said, we get it that agriculture has benefited from these trade deals. We just want to, and we'll make sure that farmers have a seat at the table.
Cattlemen say trade needs to be a big focus.
And he also understands that if we produce it, somebody's got to eat it. And we're really good at producing a lot of food in the U.S. and a lot of times excess. And in order to make sure that it doesn't go to waste and we get an economic return, we've got to have exports, and he understands that.
Congressman Adrian Smith shared similar remarks at recent Farm Bill listening sessions. Now with Secretary Perdue's confirmation, Smith called it great news for Nebraska's 3rd district, the largest agricultural district in all of Congress. And the next day, Secretary Perdue sworn in inside the U.S. Supreme Court building by Justice Clarence Thomas, also from Georgia. Later in the show, Nebraska Farm Bureau President Steve Nelson shares his impressions. And Congressman Adrian Smith says he looks forward to working with the new Ag Secretary. Quote, with his wide range of experience as a farmer, businessman, and governor, Secretary Perdue is well positioned to lead the USDA in helping create more opportunity for U.S. producers. I look forward to working with him in my role as co-chairman of the Modern Agriculture Caucus, end quotes. And agriculture, the subject of an executive order from the president. It's the Agricultural and Rural America Order. President Trump says it will help farmers compete globally. It creates a task force that will look at challenges for producers with a report to be completed in 180 days. President Trump met with 15 farmers before signing the order. They said they want to focus on immigration and trade. And importantly, Senator Deb Fischer says the order should remove burdensome regulations. One big item on the agenda for Secretary Perdue, the Farm Bill. Of course, 80% of the Farm Bill is for food stamps and nutrition programs. Conventional wisdom holds that brings urban support, and without that, the Farm Bill would struggle to pass. So we asked you if food stamps should be included along with crop insurance and commodity programs, and about 3/4 of you say it should be separated. And questions this week about the future of NAFTA, which producers say has been a big plus for Nebraska agriculture. NTV's Ife Sanachi Ibo Simba has more.
It's too important to the rural economy. We need to have it.
President Trump saying Thursday he contemplated ending the North American Free Trade Agreement.
It's been very good for Canada. It's been very good for Mexico. But it's been horrible for the United States.
But after hearing from Mexico and Canada, he says instead the U.S. will try to renegotiate the trade deal.
We have to make a deal that's fair for the United States.
Nebraska Corn Growers Association member Joel Graham says he's glad the deal won't be scrapped because rural economies depend on it.
Mexico and Canada are huge trading partners with us.
According to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the year before NAFTA was put into place, ag exports to the countries brought in about $9 billion. Last year, those exports accounted for $38 billion in the U.S. ag economy.
For agricultural producers especially, it's important because those agreements bring stability to the market.
According to the USDA, Nebraska is a leading producer of the top U.S. ag exports. That's why Bridges says Nebraska farmers can't afford to have the flow of these exports into Canada and Mexico disrupted.
Those products then stay in the United States, which basically puts a greater downward pressure on prices because there's more product available in the United States and no place for it to go.
While some agree the 2-decade-old deal needs to be modernized,
You don't live in a house for 23 years without doing some updating.
others worry the uncertainty surrounding the future of the trade agreement.
If I'm unable to make a fair deal for the United States, meaning a fair deal for our workers and our companies, I will terminate NAFTA.
Could put U.S. commodities in jeopardy.
The products that the United States produces and sells, other countries also produce similar products. If Mexico doesn't buy it from the United States, they will be able to find another country to buy it from.
And what a difference a week makes. As we look at the crop progress report released last Monday, we learned 17% of corn has now been planted in Nebraska, up from just 3% a week ago. But that report came right before the cold snap and the rain that has planting on hold for many. So we'll be watching to see what shows up in the report next week. We've also seen our first soybeans planted. The USDA says just 4% of the beans now in the ground. And certainly this week's weather has been a challenge. Growers trying to get corn planted, but extension educators say farmers risk injuring the new crop if they plant during this cold snap, especially with rain falling. They suggest using an inexpensive meat thermometer to gauge soil temps.
When we think of planting dates and when we think about soil temperatures, we really like the soils to be 50 degrees for at least the first 48 hours of putting that seed in the ground.
Extension educators say corn needs a 48-hour window and soybeans 24-hour window after planting, with soil temps at 50 or above. When we talk about diversified farms, we often think crops and livestock, but some folks who are just in the crop business are still diversified.
So that's where they're really taught.
On this family farm, Lance Atwater and his dad grow more than yellow field corn, but specialty crops like white corn and popcorn.
Just a way to diversify, especially as we're kind of in a down farm economy. It's always good to kind of spread the risk around.
Seed corn production has grown dramatically in Nebraska. Companies like Syngenta and Pioneer have expanded plants to take advantage of Nebraska irrigation. And many farmers are happy to grow anything from biotech crops tailored for ethanol to non-GMO white corn for tortilla chips.
A lot of those corns do have some sort of a premium to them. You might be 20 cents, might be 50 cents or more. And so all those help, especially if your yields stay the same and there's not a whole lot of added cost otherwise.
But there can be hassles to store these crops at harvest and an impact in the spring too.
A couple days ago I was planting soybeans, had to clean that out. To go to seed corn, had to clean that out. To go to white corn, which then I have to clean that out completely to go back to seed corn because we can't have the commingling of those crops.
And different management practices, especially for organic fields.
And the biggest thing with the non-GMO is we really have to work with our neighbors to make sure that we communicate what kind of crop we have on our field, just so that they're aware when they spray their pesticides that they kind of can be cautious of not killing ours. And
yellow corn still dominates the landscape.
But it is fun growing the white corn or popcorn, knowing that it is going into someone's food. It's going into someone's bag of Orville Redenbacher, or when you go buy those corn chips somewhere, could it come from one of our fields?
Everyone wants results on the farm, and a new tool could help. The Nebraska OnFarm Research Network has a new online feature. It's a map that allows growers to click and see research projects conducted on farms in their area. There are more than 600 studies included. It'll even work on your mobile device. They've also made a results book as a PDF that can be downloaded. In the interactive version, you could search back to 1990 and sort by county, irrigation status, topic, and crop type. Hundreds of kids gathered at Harlan County Dam for a closer look at our precious water resources.
I think a lot of times we take that for granted, just how important that it is, and how important that it is to be aware and do what we can to conserve the water, make sure that we're doing everything that we can to keep our waters clean and clear of contaminants.
Throughout the day, students checked out fun, interactive stations and learned a specific lesson about water.
They're showing us like how the water how it works, and like how groundwater and surface water can intermix, and how ground if you dig a well and it's near a river, it can affect the river.
And for the young children, playing and learning definitely go hand in hand. We just wrapped up the week of the young child. Kids between the ages of 2 and 5 were blowing bubbles and exploring the world around them, and there's a point to it. This event at Raising Nebraska tried to connect kids with their food, seeing how seeds are planted and how butter is made.
We want to give our children a lot of enriching experiences, sensory experiences, social emotional experiences, and taking something like gardening and bringing it down to the preschool or toddler level.
Raising Nebraska is an agricultural experience on the state fairgrounds. This is the first event they've done for young kids, and they hope to do more like this in the future. Later in the show, you may be surprised what some city kids say when they visit the farm. Up next, we visit with Nebraska Farm Bureau leaders about the new Secretary of Agriculture.